welcome back.
Oh, you were gonna do it?
Oh,
Okay,
wait,
no, you can do it. It's okay.
So I thought we agreed that it
Bought
was Drew's.
I do this.
a mic.
We bought a mic. America's pop
My name's
culture.
Hunter Mobley, and this is We Bought a Mic.
You really steamrolled me there.
And I'm Hunter. So this
And I'm Ernest.
And I'm Johnny Knoxville, and welcome to We Bought a Mic.
Oh, it's a prank show.
It's a prank. We did a prank.
It's a prank show. You got me.
I pranked you.
We're chilling today.
Mhm.
We just recorded our Aladdin episode, so now we're just kind of on the afterburn of the
Yeah.
So,
Robin
viewers,
heat.
I promise I do bathe. I promise I do. We just recorded them back to back. That's why you're seeing all of us in the same outfits. I cannot speak for them because they did show up on different days, but
I don't know.
this is the same day for me.
I don't know because you smelled then and you smell now.
Right.
Well,
it
I
is-
didn't say what I bathed.
It
in.
is getting a little toasty in this new studio a little bit.
I'm feeling great.
We're still working out the kinks.
I'm loving it.
I am trying to figure out the lighting setup here. We can give the listeners, the visual listeners, a sneak peek.
What can we do here?
So we can do a purple light,
Okay.
much darker.
That's I don't
We
know.
don't
if
get a
that's-
lot of light. We get blue.
This is Euphoria.
We can do a stroke speed. It's not going fast enough to really be a strobe light, but
That's definitely.
we can do a
strobe light.
slow fade.
This would distract me so much.
I would never listen to anything that we were saying, which it's probably for the best, really.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, the
honestly just-
production value is supposed to distract you from hearing us.
Tune
That's the
into
whole point of this
Tune
whole
into
thing.
the YouTube to see us in green light, red light, green light.
Gee, this is so good
Red
for
light.
people listening on Spotify. People on Spotify.
I'm starting to think I'm colorblind. Was that green? It was blue to me.
I think it was blue. I think I'm
Okay.
colorblind.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
God.
cool. One of us
One
is
of us.
colorblind.
It's like a blue green. See, this is blue,
That's blue.
That's
No,
that's blue right there.
I mean,
And then this-
looking at these is starting to hurt.
and then this is like a blue green.
Yeah.
That's like a nice.
It's like
teal.
a
Yeah.
cyan almost.
Yeah,
There
there
you
you go.
Viewers, what color do you think that is?
And what color should we stick with?
Probably white, right?
Should we turn
I
all
thought-
the lights off?
I thought you were about to do like a Dora the Explorer. Like, what color did you see?
Yeah. Can you
Blue.
Backpack.
time to get out the remote and then we have like a
Swiper,
little
no swiping.
we have a little song where it's like I'm the remote. I love to do my job.
So this is the
This is the second app. People can tell that this is the.
this is
second
the
app that
episode
we're
where we like to chat about things that we're catching up on.
Condiments.
And we have a couple things that we're going to get to, including 2 movies and 2 shows that we've been watching.
one big boy that we're gonna be talking about. I think that the world has not yet fully discovered this movie,
Right.
and
It's a
I think
slow
that it
roll.
will.
So let's start things off with a show called Severance on Apple TV Plus. It is directed by Ben Stiller and starring Adam Scott. And this is a show.
Ben Stiller, the famously from Escape from Dannemora.
yes, famously.
Director?
Most
Yeah,
notably.
exactly.
No, well, I actually think of him as the director for The Cable Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Cable Guy, the Super Bowl commercial starring Jim Carrey, the Cable Guy.
Wait, sorry, we never talked about that. Like outside of
Yeah.
just one drunken conversation.
Can we
during the
pop
Super
a
Bowl.
quick episode about this?
Why nobody has discussed this? That they did a Super Bowl commercial based off of the 1990s flop of a film, The Cable Guy.
That's the type of thing where
Wild.
it's definitely just they had the rights to one movie
Yeah.
and they used it.
Well,
They're
they
like,
asked
well, we have
Jim-
Jim here.
They were
so
like, Jim, so
do you want to do another Sonic 2 push? And he's like, literally anything but
Yeah.
that.
Well, he seems to be having a great time
No,
on
he
Sonic.
is having a great
so
time. Yeah,
I don't
we-
know if that's the case. I think it's more of like, Jim, we have you on contract to do a massive co-brand deal with some type of telecommunications company.
Yeah.
What movie from your catalog do you think
involves straight up a telecommunications company?
He's like, buddy, do I have the film for you? It's called The Mask. And they're like, no. We cannot do that one. What else?
Yeah, it's called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. A movie that actually has a lot of overlap with Severance. So Severance.
Tell me what it's about. I haven't seen this. I haven't heard anything
It's-
about it, so don't go too far. But I do need to
You
know.
get
Yeah.
the central premise.
It would be interesting to go into it knowing absolutely nothing.
I did.
Okay,
I will say that
fucking
I did,
leave.
but you find out the premise
But
like
here's-
very early.
But
on.
here's the premise. Like, it's a great premise. So I want people to know what it is, because it's like, it's, even though it'd be fun to discover it, if you don't want to discover it, you can just skip.
Yeah, because most people aren't looking to discover things on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
Is the thing. Like,
and most people don't just hear like, yes, Adam Scott, Ben Stiller. I'm just gonna watch
Yeah.
this now.
Um,
An
Imagine-
hour-long drama.
imagine that you work in an office, right? Like a corporate type of
Freaking-
cubicle setting.
fuck.
And every time you go into the building, as soon as you walk in, you're already walking out. And the entire day, you have no memory of it.
It's the whole premise of it is, what if you separated your work life
Your
and
memory.
your work life
Mhm.
and your social home life from each other?
I
and they
remember. No, now I
completely
remember seeing a
disconnected.
thing about
Like
this.
when you are at work, you only remember things that happened the previous 9 to 5. And whenever you leave work, you have no recollection of where you are, what you did for those 8
Yeah.
hours. And then you just kind of resume your life.
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
there.
so you're right. There is Eternal Sunshine in here. There's Total Recall.
Mm-hmm.
There's even, I don't know, Wanted.
Yeah, we're
It
best
still
at
has the
bending.
Gen X, like, don't
There's
you hate
bending the
cubicles?
bullet. Yeah.
Gen X hates cubicles. If you say cubicle around like a 41-year-old,
they
They
just
will
want to
become
take
fight-
a
Oh my
keyboard
God.
and like, bah.
yeah, they will fucking kill you.
I am going to become the
They're gonna bend bullets.
Tyler Durden.
Yeah, I'm gonna become Durden. The cool one, not the fucking lame one.
So what this show basically explores is like, if you were to do this, if you were to sever your memory, and every time you walk into work you have no memory of the outside world, you're essentially a different person.
Mhm.
And it explores that idea of like,
Yeah, how you're
what happens to that person that only exists in the bounds of this office, and
because
nowhere
your
else.
experiences are what shapes what you become.
Right.
So if you only had certain ones in one personality, and then that's cool.
It's,
It
it's
kind of-
fascinating.
And again, I've only seen the first episode, so I don't know how much the show's going to get into it, but it opens up this whole can of worms of like, if you're working with very sensitive materials, you don't, if you're required to like undergo the severance procedure, you don't have to worry about ever like leaking
Mhm.
that to anybody else or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like that's the way to secure information.
Is the military brought up?
I've only ever seen the first episode,
that's
so I don't know.
You know, that's the big one that you would think they would just
Yeah.
like.
I don't
It's
know
much-
where the show is going from here,
It's
but
much
it
smaller
opens up.
than that.
It opens
Yeah.
up like a giant can of like
Yeah.
worms that could.
I
Like
know, I
this
just- I
severance
just-
procedure could be.
I'd be
go in
surprised if
any
they didn't
number of
just
directions.
at least passingly be like, "Oh yeah, you should meet like the army guys that don't have PTSD," like something like that. You know?
I wouldn't be surprised if it went there eventually.
Yeah.
But right now it's very much focused on these characters. It's just like very much focused on the Adam Scott character. His name is Mark. And then this girl, Helly, who's played by Britt Lauer.
Yeah, Brett Lauer.
She was in High Maintenance, Casual, Man Seeking Woman. So you might, recognize her face and just be like, I know her from something. And turns out she's, popped up in a lot of like little shows like this. And it's, cool to see her on this kind of bigger platform show. Patty Arquette is in there. Zach Cherry, who's like another like that guy's. And then John Turturro, the King, who's like between this and the Batman, which comes out next week, is like about to have a
John
moment.
Turturro Assance.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
Christopher Walken is also in there, but he has like barely done anything. He had like one line.
He's
he's
in all 9 episodes.
I'm just like, if you're gonna cast Christopher Walken, like
Something's gonna.
you're
happen.
going
A
full-
shoe's gonna drop with Christopher.
you're
Walken.
going full like click parentheses 2005 here. Like,
Hey, there we go.
which again,
let's-
kind of similar.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So this show is very mysterious, and it's definitely trying to do something that's like very much based on reality, but not our reality. It's like trying to do this thing that's like more stilted. that retro future kind of look to it, where the computers are kind of old timey. But the thing that draws you in is like this premise, which is very interesting. A lot of avenues here, but also like the character dynamics. Like the Mark character is, you get to see his home life and his work life. He's like the main guy that we follow kind of back and forth between the two settings. And it's very interesting to see the two different sides of him and how different they are, and the reasons why this character might want to take this procedure, because this is like a voluntary procedure to like do this severance thing. And so like kind of the implication around his character as to like what led him to do this are, you know, pretty fascinating and dramatic in their own right. And then the Helly character, immediately, Ep 1, as soon as you're introduced, she's trying to escape. So it creates this interesting dynamic where like, you know, you're seeing the Adam Scott character outside in the real world, but in the office, he's kind of like the guy who wants to be by the book a little bit and kind of wants to follow things to the T. And he has to be the one to like rein in Helly as she's trying so hard to break out of this place that she put herself into, or the other version of her put her into. And that's the thing, is like, this is the same person, but you're dealing with two people, essentially.
You're like induced split personalities.
They call them the innies and the outies is like the terminology that they have for them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So again, I've only seen the first episode, but one of the things that I was really drawn to, and I'm really happy for our guy, Adam Scott, because this is something just completely new. Adam Scott's never done a role like this before. And it's so like cool to see. Last night I watched Step Brothers again, which by the way is just might just be the best comedy of the 21st century. But it's so funny like seeing a movie like Step Brothers and how him in that versus something like Severance, where the first episode you're seeing so much different types of acting from Adam Scott, and like how he has kind of evolved as a performer is just so interesting. Who wrote this story?
I'm looking right now. So Mohammed El Masri has EP and writer credits for 10 episodes, which is interesting. There's
the creator is Erickson. Dan
Erickson has 0 credits aside from this show.
Yeah, that's why
wow.
He has one other thing, and it's a special thanks on a show from like 5 years ago.
Well,
that's wild.
he's like the main he's like the showrunner, essentially.
How did he get this? Like, how do you get this greenlit? Like, there's no credits at all.
I'll give you one guess, and it's the college he went to. I promise.
Oh, well,
you know what I mean? Like, he went to USC or like NYU or Harvard.
I'm sure.
Guarantee you.
I mean, good job I hit, because this is like such an interesting premise. Again, like just you bring up that idea and it just it creates a whole web of different ideas that spin off from that.
Yeah.
And I really do want to know where the show's going to go. Escape from Dannemora was how many years ago was that at this point? I know
17, I believe.
You were a big Dannemora head whenever
maybe
that came out.
17, maybe
18, 17, 18.
Well, I watched it later. I watched it like a couple of years after it came out. So maybe it was like 17-ish, and then I watched it like maybe a year or two later. But that show is a triumph. Like, Ben Stiller directs the fuck out of that show.
It had a huge moment for like TV people.
Yeah.
Like prestige people.
I love that show. And Paul Dano, Benicio.
And it didn't come back. It actually ended, right?
Well, it's based on a true story, so they told the story.
I know, but that doesn't stop some fucking miniseries from being like, and then they're in prison again, you know?
No, they adhered very closely to like the real events, and that was what, you know, really wowed me. But this is a whole
2018, by the way.
Yeah, this is a whole original thing, and I don't think that Stiller is like the main creative force here. I think he's just coming in to kind of like set the palette, the tone, the kind of the guiding light of kind of what the show is visually and tonally.
It even has, that makes sense, because it even has some shades of like Walter Mitty, right? You know?
Yeah. Well, another Adam Scott.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Stiller, so he directs the first 3 and then the last 3. And it looks like there's another guy here. Afi McArdle, I believe. I might have just absolutely butchered that name, but he's actually coming in there and directing the middle 3 that we have not seen yet. So, another creative force in there.
So I don't want to kind of reveal too much about this show and where it goes, because I've seen 3 episodes that are now out as of this recording. But I really recommend it. I think it's definitely worthwhile. I think it's just one of those shows that like really hooks you in with that premise, and then where it goes, especially with these characters and like the different dynamics between them and how it explores this world, is super interesting. And I can't wait to see where it goes. I hope that it doesn't unravel as it goes. But critics have seen the full season, and they've said that it's like totally worth it, and it just keeps like getting better and better. So I have faith that it's going to end up in a good place.
By the way, wait a minute. Did you do that on purpose, or
What?
that transition? It's going to end up in a good place.
Oh,
Speaking of a good place,
it's like
damn, wow!
don't
Look at
even
that.
try.
Forget what I was even going to say.
That's perfect. Yes. So another show that shares that otherworldly kind of limbo of reality type of feel.
Yeah, you should have just stopped when you were ahead. It's well past the time. Did you guys talk about the end of The Good Place?
Yeah. It was on my top 10 of the year.
Yeah. So I find, because I kind of fell off The Good Place for a reason. Like I thought it was sort of starting to underperform based on its premise after, like, sort of toward the end of like season 2, getting into season 3. I was like, okay, like, where are we going here? I saw some of season 3.
Well, 3 was the one where they're just like back on Earth living.
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
Yeah,
I didn't like that.
That wasn't the best. I mean, I like what it was going for.
That's the thing.
The idea behind it.
The
but
premise is always great, but like it like Mike Schur more than anyone knows how like sacred certain sitcom things are, and changing up everything so drastically all the time. Sometimes it'll work, and it did a lot for the show. You know, there were changes made that shouldn't have worked, and they did, but that did not play for me. That said, I didn't even see all of season 4. My new roommate Nikki, who I don't even know extremely well, but she was finishing up The Good Place. She had watched basically all of it over the past few weeks. So I had like joined in here and there. But we just watched like the final 3 episodes together.
Perfect.
And the reason I say we don't even know each other very well is because like during the episode, we kind of looked over at each other and we were both like, I'm trying really hard not to cry right now. Are you? Like, we were both like choking back tears.
Just let it rip.
Yeah. And I was going in like pretty dry. You know, it's phenomenal how they ended the show. It shouldn't work on any level, especially just the finale alone, because they cram in so much shit into the finale.
The finale is like a whole.
It is like the busiest
episode arc.
It's the busiest.
Itself.
It's double the length of a regular episode. It contains like a season worth of development. There's so much happening, and it should be way too much, but it's not, because they keep it honed in on the characters, and the base conceits of what they go for, again, which is, it mirrors like a lot of the early seasons of the show, where like the end of season 1 is all about that big reveal for me, where it's just like that changes the show. The reveals you get all in one final episode are fucking absurd. Like it's crazy how much they're able to do, where they get to The Good Place, they realize that like
spoilers for the ending of The Good Place.
No, never. I would never do that. Yeah, I'm going to spoil it heavily. But so they realize that everyone there has become dumb because like it's bad to feel good all the time.
Right.
About like, because
they've
like,
run out of things
goes,
to do.
Yeah, if everything is perfect all the time, then
which is basically
it kind of ruins the joy.
It reminded me of what people say about like doing heroin. Basically, it's like you can't just feel like that all the time. Like there has to be a price to pay.
Right. So they have to figure out like what's next. How do you actually ascend.
They have to
that.
they have to figure out, because like the only thing that gives life meaning is the fact that it will end. Like they pack in a ton of philosophy without it becoming too preachy or annoying.
As always.
Yeah, exactly.
They always that was the best thing about that show. How philosophical.
And this is all just in the finale. They set up a really heady and like emotional idea of each of these characters are going to one by one say goodbye to the world voluntarily.
Yeah, they're just gonna step through a white door, and the whole thing is like, we don't know what's on the other side. It actually like it opens up the show where the show began, where it's just like what happens after you die, and then it's what happens after the afterlife.
Yeah.
Like
once you're done with that,
Yeah, because heaven isn't. It can't be heaven if it's great forever. You have to be able to pull the plug, or else it's all just like nonsense.
Right.
And you get to say goodbye to each of these characters individually, and it's like so fucking emotional.
Gutting.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's
absolutely
emotional.
gutting.
Yeah. Even, like I was getting emotional watching Jason finish his game of Madden.
Yeah.
because I knew that would be the end.
His last game of Madden.
It's really, really wild what they pulled off for a show that had become a little uneven for me.
It felt like it didn't. It peaks so heavily with that big twist, and then where it goes there
kicks ass. Season 2 is like
that's
really
probably
good.
the best season. And then they go back to Earth in season 3, and then you felt like, okay, where are they going? Like it felt like it was still good. It was still a great show, but like it didn't have that same like sense of momentum. It just felt a little bit kind of aimless, a little bit, even though the characters were still great and it still had those like great discussions about philosophical things, but like the narrative momentum wasn't as good as it was at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And then with 4, they're like, okay, now we're actually going to get to the good place, the real good place, and we're going to explore that. And I think that worked really well. And I mean, when you step back and you look at the full show, I think that it is, you still have that sitcom feel to it where it's just like you're good friends kind of hanging out, but then it also has this incredibly complex, massive serialized story.
Yeah.
Every episode is a chapter, so they're like very deliberately kind of separating it in that way.
To that point though, like, and you mentioned like this is an NBC sitcom. Can you imagine just like random John Smith in like Missouri just like firing on NBC one day and just seeing like chapter 32 of this without seeing anything else? Like, I can't believe that this show is on NBC and they just play reruns out of order just on the network now. Like, that is insane to me because this is such a plot driven show.
Yeah, it's really wild, and it'll take some getting used to, obviously. It took some for me, because not just because it's so out there and so heavy, but because the amount of plot that it contains, it has to sacrifice a lot of room for jokes that like regular sitcoms have, where it's just like boom, 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 joke, joke, joke. It can't be like that. They have to do a lot over the course of a season or an episode. So I don't know. I just wanted to give it its flowers because
they got it. They nailed it.
They stuck the landing really hard, which makes sense because Mike Schur has talked about in interviews a whole lot the amount that he values finales of sitcoms, like the Cheers finale. Obviously, the Parks and Rec finale is one that is pretty famous for giving everyone what they want.
That's such a weird one.
I think that one gives you too much of what you want.
It just like keeps skipping forward in time.
The problem with that one is that there are like no negatives in that finale. Like everything is happy, and this one like I was trying not to cry like an hour and a half later.
Right. Yeah.
Like it really, really gets you. And yet it ends in a place where you're like, I was really happy with where it ended. And that's like, that to me is a lot harder of a balance to strike than like the end of a happy show ending it happily, you know? Good on y'all. You did a good job. Shouldn't have doubted Joe Mandy, Jen Statsky. Who else do I
Mike Schur.
I don't know.
Ted Danson.
A lot of the writers who would go on to write HBO's Hacks, actually.
Oh, good point.
It's also produced by Mike.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
Did you cry though when Johnny Knoxville and the boys said goodbye?
No, I didn't. I don't know why I'm being like, yeah, maybe.
Well, you can try to act all tough and everything, but I think that I did cry with how hard I laughed
in Jackass Forever.
in Jackass Forever. So, yeah, we're talking. This is a very awkward and clumsy transition after how smooth your transition was before to The Good Place. So, Jackass Forever, we did our most anticipated episode after I had already seen Jackass Forever, so it was not eligible to be on that list.
But
This
by the
would have
way,
been in my top 5 most anticipated things to come out. in
hold
2022.
on. We should give a space for Drew to say what are your most anticipated things of 2022, because you didn't get to say them.
And you
weren't here.
can't say anything that we said, and we won't tell you what we said. You had to have listened to the episode.
Good.
What are you most looking forward to in terms of movies, TV,
Okay.
Music.
Here's what we're
music?
gonna do. And then cut right here, and then act like you lost the footage of me saying like a really good list.
Yeah.
Well,
that I definitely
you know
like
what?
know.
Ernie, we've like left off some like bangers of things off
Like
of our
what?
list. Like LCD Sound System has an album that's coming out this year.
Is it
I mean, they're doing SNL
tonight
right now.
as of this recording?
So they're probably gonna have an album coming
Yeah.
out this year. There's some good shit that's coming out that I keep just thinking of. I'm like, oh fuck, we didn't even mention that.
your rollovers that didn't come out from our previous episode were really good. You picked The Curse, which is the Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie show.
Fuck, man.
I
That's
hope it comes
coming.
out this year.
New Kendrick album, which we'll see, and then Untitled Bo Burnham project, which I don't think we'll see.
Okay. I'm just like flop sorting. Yeah. Also, the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild.
All right,
All right, there we go. So that's up there.
I think
gave-
that already came.
I gave,
Directed by John C. Duncan. Not Duncan.
Duncan.
John C. Duncan.
John.
All right, now you
Dude,
have to see
John
that and
C.
report back.
Duncan.
I want a full review.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's
famously,
John B. Duncan?
famously
you
a
know
producer
John
on
B. Duncan.
Robots.
Really, a movie we'll cover on our Robin Williams series.
Excited for that. Very excited
Woof.
for that.
Oh man.
And
Hey.
we'll cover it again on our Amanda Bynes series. By the
You
way,
hating robots right now? Were you about to fucking drag the cinematic American achievement that is robots? Parentheses
I'm
2006.
Yes, I was. I was 100% going to do that. But I'll wait. I give it like, I don't know, like 4.5 years by the time we ever get to that episode and recording.
So, Jackass Forever was one of the best
Speaking of
theater
4.
experiences I've had in years.
Hell yeah.
Especially for a comedy, it's up there with movies I saw when I was a kid. When back when audiences were a little more open to like emoting in theaters outside of just like talking to amongst
And
themselves. You
You're
know?
just having a side conversation.
yeah, exactly.
I think part of that is because it's the Jackass franchise, though, and this like hit a bone inside of me that was just like it struck the childhood nerve inside of me. This is, I think, the hardest that I've laughed in years. Like, I was like keeled over in the theater, like
Yeah.
howling at
yeah,
points in this movie.
it's the hardest I've laughed in a theater probably ever.
It's
Because the atmosphere was there, because these movies force you to react. Even if you don't like what you're looking at, you're making noises while watching it.
yeah.
You're going, ah! Like,
Yeah.
so
No,
everyone in that theater is making a
everybody
noise, even if they hate it.
It's so good. It
It's
truly
such a
But they're
good-
still they
masterful
paid money to
thing.
sit in
Yeah.
the seat,
It's
so
just-
they can't hate it that much.
It's just such a good atmosphere to be in, where like it's at the same time as the laughter, but like I know for a fact that there were plenty of like girlfriends who got dragged in there who were like, oh, Jesus, you know?
I mean, it's a Jackass movie. Like, what are
we
you gonna expect?
also went to Drew and I went to the fan event, so it was all Jackass diehards that were
damn.
in the seats with us.
Which is so this fan event started with some bonus content in the beginning of the movie that really like, if the movie wasn't great, it took away from the viewing experience.
yeah, they openly just like talk about bits that they're
Yeah,
gonna
they
do in
they
the
show
movie,
you
which is a
they
bummer.
show you little clips of what you're about to watch, and you're like, what the fuck? The only thing it does is it does a better job of introducing you to the new members of Jackass, which there are. That's a huge deal. They've never done that before. They've sort of expanded their crew, but it's always been very informal, and it's always been dudes that have always like been around them, and they just like put them in more shit, like with Dave England or like Danger Aaron or whatever.
Yeah.
By the way, Danger Aaron is probably like has like the second most screen time in this movie aside from Johnny Knoxville, which is crazy.
Dude, Aaron's so good.
He's always been like a like bottom tier Jackass.
Well, he's
guy.
been like the unsung hero where they just make him do the worst things.
Yeah, the worst thing they ever did to someone is the terrorist prank in Jackass 2. Like they made him think he was going to get shot and killed, and also made him do a really racist prank.
Yeah, so for people, spoilers for the last sketch of Jackass 2, it's both aged horribly and aged fucking beautifully at the exact same time. Aaron thinks that he's doing a bit where he's gonna play a terrorist and he's gonna pretend like he has a bomb strapped to his body and he's taking a taxi to an airport. Very racist portrayal of a thing, and you're just like, oh, that sounds awful. The entire cast of Jackass is like in on this prank, and they hire a fake taxi driver.
Who is Jay Chandrasekhar from Broken Lizard?
Yeah,
from Super Troopers.
Super Troopers and Beer Fest, and that
director of a bunch of Community episodes.
Yeah. So they get him. There's like, we're gonna hire somebody, and he's gonna like lose his mind and like try and like kill him because he's gonna think that he's capturing a terrorist. Then we're gonna go a step further, and we aren't just gonna give this man a fake beard. The entire time we've been filming Jackass 2, we've been shaving our pubes.
I've
his
heard about
fake
this.
beard is going to be glued on pubes from the entire cast. It's just the way that it's done. It's like a 25 minute long prank.
And he don't like it.
And
he's not happy.
The way that it just kind of devolves because he has no idea what he's doing and everybody is laughing and Aaron thinks that he's like, oh, I'm doing a good job doing like this terrorist voice. Like people are really liking what I'm doing. And it's just everyone is in on the joke except for him. And it's so good.
So going into Forever, it's wild that Aaron is doing the most shit, including a ton of dick and ball shit. Which is really the real star of this movie is Penis.
Yeah, the most dick and balls in any Jackass property, and they are all in like their 40s at this point.
Yeah, well, so where it could have gone south is with the new cast members, and the way it didn't is A, they didn't overuse them; they still use themselves quite a bit. And B, these people are really good, and they know how to use them. The best by far, and it's not even close. This guy's real name is Sean McInerney. He goes by Poopies.
He's Poopies.
And he is a guy he's the only one who immediately like fully fits into Jack. There's no pretense about him. There's no like sort of younger millennial like self-awareness of being on camera or like anxiety. This guy is just a dumb idiot who will do anything they tell him to do. And he emotes really heavily. He gets scared. He's funny. Like he's a perfect member of this cast. It's like, it almost reminds me of Whose Line when like, they'd rotate out the fourth.
Yeah.
And sometimes people would just like immediately
straight heaters.
Yeah. They'd just blend in. And then other times you'd be like, oh no, it's an episode with this guy.
Yeah.
Like he's not, it like Poopies is just like, he's like Greg Proops. Like he's just, he blends in perfectly. You have a guy who calls himself Jackass, who's like basically the new, younger, like huge guy. He's gigantic. He calls himself Jackass because he's been doing stunts like on his own accord for years and years.
Because of Jackass.
Yeah, he has like a giant Jackass tattoo.
That is one thing that kind of jumping off of that like this movie kind of confronts the whole idea of there was a generation that was raised on Jackass and that like influenced the culture.
Yeah.
Now bring these people in.
This guy, you can tell, is sort of aware of the cameras, I'll say. He also, it's nothing against him, but him and also comedian Rachel Wolfson, who's in this, neither of them seem to feel pain like at all.
Yeah, and they're too good at it.
Yeah, and it almost takes away from it because like you want to see people suffer. So they're doing things where you expect a certain reaction. So when you don't get it, it's sort of surprising. Like Jackass will like ramp himself into straight dirt and then just get him and be like, fuck yeah, dude. And it's like, no, you're supposed to.
You're like, no, I want to see you like.
Preston would have like cried.
Yeah.
This is something I wanted to ask you guys because I haven't seen this movie and I'm not a big Jackass guy. We put on the original Jackass the movie at your house
for my birthday last year,
and I actively had to look away from like half of that movie. just because like it has that reaction where like the things on screen are so visceral, and I know it's real. I know these are not like professional stuntmen. These guys are like actually hurting themselves on camera, and it like makes me not want to watch it. Like it's so, it just, the emotion I get watching it, I'm like, I can't watch it. I have to, like, involuntarily I just like look away from the screen.
I mean,
I cover my eyes, which I don't even do during like horror movies.
I know.
But horror movies aren't as genuine as this. And so to that point, we gotta give a shout out to our guy Jeff Tremaine, who is like, him and Johnny Knoxville are like the brain team behind Jackass. He is the director of all the Jackass films. And one thing that is underrated in the Jackass universe is the direction. Is because you feel like you are there in the moment. You are like along with them. You're just like another guy in the crew, and you're seeing your friends get hurt and put themselves in dangerous situations.
I know, but my question is like, is that part of the deal, or am I doing something wrong in like how I'm watching these movies?
No,
like,
you just, I guess.
Like, should I not? Is that the wrong way to watch them, to like have that feeling of like, I don't want to watch this, because that feels wrong.
Well, duh. I mean, if you want to like them, then yeah. But the thing is, these movies are an automatic no-go for a ton of people. Like, tons of people just can't. Like, they're just like, they can't overcome like the brain programming. That's like that. This is like my nightmare. Like, I'm watching the things that I least would want to happen to a person, and they're happening to a real person. The thing that really overcomes it for me is that it's not like the NFL, where it's like an organization that is like concealing information about how what they're putting these people through is like killing them. These are all just guys who like invented this. You know, the second thing is, you know that no one is going to die, because then they wouldn't make it.
Right.
They can't, it can't get that bad.
Well, I know they're not going to die, but it's like, it's how much pain and suffering that doesn't lead to death can be sustained. And I'm basing this just off of the first movie, because like I haven't seen any of the other ones, but it's just like, it feels like a hump to get over. And I feel like when you're in that room with all the Jackass fans in the theater, there is no hump to get over. You're already over that hump if you're in that theater, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. If you're seeing this with a crowd full of people, it's a better experience. And I already love these movies, but like with a ton of people, it was fucking awesome.
You're not trying to look away at that point. You're already there. You're sitting there in front of a giant screen.
You like want to look away, but you can't. Well, that's kind of the beauty of the Jackass movies.
Yeah, and it's also, I don't know, it has that communal feeling to it, where it's just like everyone in that theater has just agreed that this is cinema. Like this is
better than a
this
Fellini
is worth buying a
film.
ticket
like,
and coming in and
is
watching it. And there's just this sense of like, we're all in this. Like we're all going to sit through this.
I can't wait to like show my kids. I'm gonna be like, this is great cinema. Here's 8.5, and here's Jackass Forever.
Yeah, and they're gonna say this is literally nothing. Like I saw Two Girls One Cup when I was like 4.
The thing is like, not Two Girls One Cup, but like this, more than just like Jackass and people joining the Jackass crew, this is now like half of YouTube. It's just like epic
stupid
pranks.
Shit, yeah.
It's just like
gone wrong? Question mark.
Like I eat my friend's fart, and then just like I like
it's also
do a little mini bike, and I go on a half pipe, and I hurt myself.
And they're
like,
the thing is they're often either like not really pranks, they're just like bothering people, or they're fake. Like a podcast I listened to went through, there's a certain YouTuber who has a series of videos where it's like, I bought a Psycho on the dark web. And the whole video is just him like opening a box, and there's like a crazy guy in there. And they're like, ah! Shit like that, you know? It's like, I bought a goblin. Surprising my girlfriend with a goblin.
So what?
So like this is just, it feels pure. It feels real. Because they invented this, and they've been doing it for 20 plus years. The TV show was a cultural moment. It was a huge fucking deal.
MTV, right?
Yeah, it was on MTV. it was so lo-fi and low budget. Like it looked like shit. And I want to give more flowers to Johnny Knoxville because so much of this revolves around the insane charisma that he has, even in his current like CTE like 50-year-old form.
Dude,
he still is like so hot.
Yeah, he's still
Silver Fox.
He's 50, and dear God,
And
is
he
he
also-
so hot?
well,
Like,
and
what
also-
the fuck? It's not fair.
Also, everything I said about the new cast members not feeling pain doesn't apply to Johnny because that's a part of his persona that works because you see him as the one that has to be bulletproof because he's the one making everyone do this. You know, he's the one like in Jackass 2, he's the one that's like, guys, come on, like we're just gonna get hit by a bomb of like rubber bullets. It doesn't matter. Like, come on, guys. And then they do it and they're all covered in welts and he just gets up, he's like, see guys, that was fine. Like it's deranged how much pain he does not feel.
So it's like a recurring thing in the Jackass movies where he gets hit by a bull and he just kind of keeps doing this to the point where like you forget he's getting hit by a bull. And then a similar thing happens in Jackass Forever where he gets hit by a bull, but he's 50 and his body doesn't heal the same way as he did.
Yeah, so he
might not
actually
make
He has to get hospitalized.
he has an injury that makes it so he probably can't do this stuff anymore actually. Which is honestly fine. I don't know how much longer I would want to see the like Johnny and the original gang do this stuff. Like it's a good time to pass it on to newer people.
Is that what makes this the best one? That it's like
it's part
everybody's saying that this is the best
It's
one.
also a lot of it is production stuff, man. Like Tremaine has gotten better with each movie.
Yeah.
Each movie starts with a big set piece, and this one is easily the best.
This-
It's a massive like celebrity packed like budget looking set piece. And I won't say anything else about it.
The giveaway of how, like where it goes is just like fucking incredible.
It's like
it's so
great.
good.
It's very funny. It's very well done. And also it feels like their quantity of cameras must have increased because one of the signature things of these movies and you know, credit to Jeff, is that they somehow always have cameras on someone saying the funny line. Like they always have a camera on the best reaction or like, you know, or the best, like someone just deciding to like add an extra step to the prank on top. And this movie has so much of that. And part of that reason why is because this movie is the most insulated of any Jackass movie because it's during a pandemic. They couldn't do a lot of like in the street shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was
They hardly did any.
that they kind of the cast has talked about is just like this film has the most in pranking because they couldn't do like we're gonna dress up like an old man and go out on the streets and prank
Bad
normal
grandpa.
people. We couldn't do the bad grandpa.
Yeah,
thing.
well, and also
so we just have to keep pranking each other in the cast at all times.
Also, so you haven't seen Jackass 2.
No.
That movie has probably like 10 plus minutes of Spike Jones in old lady makeup with like
Well, that was in the first one too.
He does even more.
He
of it.
does so much of it. It's like his
Jackass,
favorite thing to do in real life.
Yeah, more than directing feature films.
Why would he
Literally.
direct another movie when he could just hang out with the Jackass crew?
The result of that installation though is that this feels more than any of them like it's like a movie about Jackass. Like it's about the hang. It's about like the guys loving each other and loving these new people.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, there's no contention. It's all love. Like they really like each other.
You did mention the old crew. I want to give a shout out to a couple people. One, Steve-O, which I really did not know how much Steve-O was going to be in this movie because, I mean, read about what was happening whenever they were making the Jackass movies. He was like suffering from really, really, really bad drug addiction. Like horrible, debilitating drug addiction, and now he has been, I think, 5 years sober.
Oh hell yeah!
And he still does,
and he's still
awful
doing
things.
the most painful, awful things. But like, I just didn't know because it's like, oh well, you watch Jackass 2, and some of the things that he's doing, it's like, oh yeah, no wonder he's like, no other human being would want to like stick a fishing lure in their mouth and like go swimming with sharks, like use himself as bait.
Steve.
Nobody else would want to do that.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Chris Pontius, who is just
He's the eternal king.
man, just
I
an
love
absolute
Chris.
legend. Nobody loves dressing up
Like a lady.
like a woman.
Either like a lady or just like in a thong. and he's just the king.
Chris
of it.
Pontius just lets it all hang out all the time. I love him so much.
he's like the most natural of any of them. The magic of Johnny is that he literally always has the perfect line to punctuate a sketch, like or a prank, and it's often something you couldn't write because it's based on what just happened, which wasn't planned necessarily. He just like has the it factor, you know. There's a reason he started doing the Jackass stuff to get into Hollywood, and he did briefly, but he at that point he was known as the Jackass guy.
When are we gonna have a cultural reevaluation of the film The Ringer?
That's a great question.
Film where Johnny Knoxville pretends to be a mentally disabled person
God.
to get into the Special Olympics.
I think maybe that's a solo pod for you.
No, I'm gonna get the entire TheRinger.com crew to come on and be like, "Hey, defend
Let's
this."
talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into it.
Moo's a big fan.
Yeah.
So this movie has a lot going for it in the positives. It all, plenty of cameos going on. Like Eric Andre obviously pops up. He's the most. His entire thing is 100% based on Jackass plus Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't exist without them. There are certain like going back and watching the Jackass movies. There are certain sketches where you're like, this is an Eric Andre sketch, but it was like 10 years before. There's one in Jackass 2 where Chris Pontius like explodes out of a vent that's just like a hole in the sidewalk, and he's wearing like a cape and shit, and he just like pops out and lands on his ass. He's like,
he's dressed up in like full devil garb.
Yeah, he's the devil.
Like,
that's right. Yeah, he's the devil.
That's Eric Andre.
He's just like, hell is coming to California.
Yeah,
like, it's so good.
And so the other there are a couple other new people too. One of them is from Loiter Squad, which is another like
Jasper.
direct relative of Jackass. Yeah, Jasper. And they also, because they have had to 100% replace Bam Margera and act like he doesn't exist anymore, they use Jasper's dad as like the new like parent to fuck with, which is very fun. His dad is like an old school like tough guy, and they get him, they get him vulnerable, which is very lovely.
Yeah.
It's just great. I love the way these movies have like probably like 5 to 10 second long interstitials that are really, if you think about them, they're like very complex and like orchestrated little stunts that were just done just for a 10-second clip to go in between two long ones. There's so many of those that are just like effortlessly like thrown in there, and they're so good. Like it's very well done. This is like, I would call this the most well done of any of the Jackass movies. Like you could say like sometimes you're looking at them like, wow, they're getting up there. Steve-O's voice is completely shot.
Yeah.
Like just stuff like that. Machine Gun Kelly comes in and does a thing.
He gets his shit rocked, which he deserves.
Yeah,
honestly,
he really has no charisma on screen, and I love to see it. And also he got no pump from the crowd in our theater. Like no one. I heard people be like, "Oh."
I think the people knew that he had emo girl inside of him, and they were just already just like get his shit slapped.
Yeah, love to see it.
Did you guys?
Emo girl. I will say I think that Jackass 2 still has my favorite big set pieces. But I think that I think that you're right, that Forever has like the best mix of everything.
Yeah, it also has my favorite.
My
favorite thing they've ever done is the Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, so I don't want to
prank.
spoil any single sketch that they do, but they do one which I think it's if it's not my favorite, it's in my top 3 ever, where it is a psychological prank.
Yeah,
which Jackass has never done before.
There's also a great like lengthy cameo by Tyler the Creator, who is another very influenced by Jackass guy. It's like a good hang movie where you're just if you're fully desensitized to awful things, which a lot of people are if you were like on the internet in middle school and you had like a certain friend who would be like, hey, you want to see something fucked up? Like I've seen people just die. They do like get to you, especially like the nausea stuff like that in itself can be a deal breaker for people, and I can't blame anyone for that, because that's like an involuntary reaction.
There's less of that in this
one.
one.
But there is definitely less of that in
but not none of it, which I'm glad that there's not none of it, because it's not Jackass if you completely take away all of
they have to have some poop.
All of the poo-poo.
And puke.
Do you
in
guys
the scene.
remember that Johnny Knoxville is in Men in Black?
Yeah, he plays the guy with the little fucking alien coming out of his.
It's another Johnny Knoxville coming out of his back.
Men in Black 2, right? It's the second one, right?
I think he's credited on both. I'm looking at it right now.
I just remember in the second one because he's like the evil lady's little like number 2. Like he has a significant role in Men in Black 2.
Oh,
Where
okay.
they take over.
I think you're
maybe.
right. Yeah, I think it is too.
Cool. It's a bad movie, Men in Black 2. Let me tell you, not aged very well.
He was rumored to reappear in Men in Black 3, and I guess it didn't work out.
At that point, that's 2010. I think it's the same years as Bad Grandpa.
I was looking up at
Low key, guys, can we talk about how successful the Jackass movies have been? Like, they're
the
one of the most.
spin-off.
No, like just the Jackass, including Bad Grandpa and everything. It's one of the most successful original franchises. Ever.
Box office.
Yeah,
wise?
box office wise ever. Like, that's insane. Like it's sketch comedy. It's just like little sketch prank comedies, and it's one of the most successful original franchises that we have.
If you break down what it is that you're watching, it's extremely progressive, like experimental filmaking.
Yeah, it is.
Because it has no
Yeah, it's
equivalent.
like Buster Keaton shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has no equivalent in modern. Like you're watching a documentary in a movie theater with tons of other idiots. You know,
it's Buster Keaton mixed with 120 Days of Sodom.
Yeah. Shit.
Solo mixed with Buster Keaton.
I mean, that's what Buster Keaton was doing. Like he was like hanging off the fucking side of trains and shit.
Yeah, but that was like a part of a plot. You're watching like the most visceral shit you can watch.
Yeah.
Like it like wakes up your senses watching this. Like you can't just sleepwalk through a Jackass. You have to like react very strongly to it. Whether or not you want to is whether or not you're gonna like it.
Well,
I am curious.
I'll check it out.
Do you think so? Did we sell you on it?
I think so.
I'll
I think,
go with you and see this like tomorrow. I'm ready to see this movie again. Do you think they're going to make another one? Because I
not
could
with this
see.
with the OG cast.
I think that they introduce people because I think they're going to try and transition to like a new crew.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to end this? I mean, it kind of at the end of the because if Jeff isn't involved, then it's not Jackass.
I know,
point.
and like
Jeff
nothing,
and Johnny.
like I said, I really like the new people, but like it is like it's a magic thing what these guys have, and it's going to be really
It's
hard.
about the camaraderie.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like
It's just so unforced.
when
with
you
them.
start doing this crazy shit with each other for this amount of time, like there's an extra level.
Yeah.
There's an extra layer added to it where like they're doing this for it's like a more visceral reason for doing it. And I guess there's also like this layer of like trying to keep upping the danger too,
Yeah.
which must be like terrifying for each other, where it's just like they love each other. They have brotherly relationships with each other.
Yeah,
and they're also trying to get each other to do more and more extreme shit. Like that is a very like crazy dynamic.
That is what like your big brother does to you, or at least especially did back then. Like
Right.
Yeah.
it's what your friend who like your mom doesn't really like it when they come over. You know, like it's what they do. Like
Right.
you know.
Guys, I just discovered something on Letterboxd. There was a Jackass project that came out last year in 2021.
What's that?
They did a partner up with Shark Week.
Shark. Oh,
where
shit.
it's Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Chris Pontius, Poopies,
Poopies.
Jasper, and they did a bunch of shark-based pranks to like test their pain
like in the
threshold and
cage,
shit.
like they got in the
I think
cage.
it was something that partnered with Shark Week. I kind of want to go home and like find this somewhere. It's 43 minutes long.
I'll check it out.
That's significant.
Yeah, it's a
I'll
full.
check it
That's
out.
a full Shark Week episode
Yeah,
right
let's
there.
let's
That's
see it.
content.
All right. Well, we have one more thing we want to talk about before we wrap up.
Kind of. Some people would say like the Norwegian Jackass.
Yeah.
This is a very We Bought a Mic thing to do, which is to go from Jackass to a
To
foreign
cinema.
a foreign film by the name of The Worst Person in the World. which is slowly going to be more accessible for people to see. We got a chance to see it at our local art house theater. So if you have access to this movie in your town, it is in slow rollout. It's been like very slowly kind of being shown in more theaters. I am confident that this is going to be on Hulu within like the next month and a half or so.
It's definitely going to be, I will guarantee it will be on Hulu before the Oscars.
Or right around maybe like that
like
weekend or
a week. No, I think it's going to come out like a week or 2 weeks before the Oscar ceremony. So then it will kind of get some buzz. It'll be on the front page of Hulu. Maybe some people will check it out and then they'll be like, oh, yeah. Oh, that's nominated for Best Original Screenplay? Oh, I guess I'll watch the awards.
and Best International Film. It's got 2 Oscar nominations under its belt and a bunch of other awards, including a Cannes Best Actress Award for the lead.
Renata Rensiv.
Yep, that's her name. And this movie is basically a modern romantic drama comedy. It's almost like a rom-com, like the 2022 version of a rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take this movie and you compare it to like the early 2000s versions of rom-coms, you cannot end up with a more different kind of movie. Like it is very much an evolved, more mature take on the genre. And it has like this like more stylized, like sharp directorial flair to it.
Yeah, that's
really grabs you.
That's one thing that I wasn't expecting, despite everything I've heard about it. Because you hear about the screenplay and the performance, which both deserve every award that they're gonna win. But the direction by do you say it, Joachim
Trier.
It's fucking phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's so good. He does a great job capturing people being alone and experiencing emotions, which is harder to do than it may seem. B, people talking to each other while still having it look interesting. But then C, it has all these little interstitial bits that are just like pure style.
Yeah. It's 12 chapters, a prologue, and an epilogue, which is a really good way to structure the movie because you're constantly like being demarcated, like how far along you are in the movie and kind of how far you are from the end.
Well, especially because the story is like told in a series of vignettes.
Yeah. And some of them are very short. Some of them are literally like a single little scene.
Yeah.
And then some of them are multiple scenes and sequences that kind of like all play out in their own right, but still fall into these chapter demarcations. So it has this like kind of like, it's kind of playing on its own terms a little bit. It's kind of like going to the beat of its own drum. I've never seen a movie do things kind of exactly like this. The one that it kind of reminded me the most of is like Suspiria, the Suspiria remake, which kind of does a similar thing.
Yeah, the chapters.
But even that movie like doesn't switch things up as much as this one does, or even keep you like with as much momentum as this one does. Because like this one, you're in the driver's seat, like following this woman the whole time. I think there's like one chapter that deviates from her and kind of goes off into this guy, this normal dude. He's just a guy. What's this guy's name?
Ivan,
played by Herbert Nordrum.
Yeah.
So
really goofy guy.
I just
goofy looking
goofiest
motherfucker.
looking face.
Yeah,
I gotta if he can land her, I gotta go over there, bro.
So here, yeah.
Like you gotta be kidding.
I want to move to Oslo tomorrow. So before we get into the movie itself, I want to know what you guys thought about it overall, because I saw this movie before we did our top 10. This was number 2 on my list. Let me tell you, I've saw it since then. This is now my favorite movie of last year.
It's really good.
I think that, and not only is this my favorite movie of last year, I think this is one of my favorite movies of the last like 10 years. I think this movie is perfect.
I think it'd be tough for me not to put it at number 1 for last year, to be honest.
It's so fucking
it's
good.
It's not gonna smack that hard with every single person who watches it. Because it has that navel gazy feel. It has that like well, who the fuck is she that I should watch her just, sort of stumble through life, blah, blah, blah. Some people don't have time for that. This is so phenomenally executed. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. There's some jaw-dropping moments.
Yeah. It reminds me of almost it's a weird comparison, but The Favorite, where it's like almost every different category of filmmaking that
It's just
creates
like
a
all
film
perfect.
is all and it's all working toward the same goal. Like there's it's all trying to make the same movie. It doesn't have like the cinematography of a different type of movie, like
Right.
which happens a lot. It works so well. The emotional arc that you go through is unexpected, and it really, really powerful.
Yeah, I hesitate to give away too much about where this movie goes because I really want people to see it. But essentially, what you're getting at is that this movie takes a turn in the third act that I did not see coming.
No, I didn't either.
And I commend it so.
Jesus. Hey,
Got puppy problems.
what's this? Come here.
I commend it so much for that because you get this story of this woman that is navigating relationships, romantic relationships in her life, and for the most part it is very leaning on the comedy side of things.
Yeah.
It's hijinks, it's a lot of like genuine discussions about relationships and romance and dating, like a lot of stuff in that wheelhouse of just like investigating modern relationships. And then it takes this turn in the third act that like leaves you in this much more like darker, sadder place.
Yeah.
That
Leaves
I
you
didn't
pretty
expect.
gutted.
Yeah.
It also until that point, this is like this movie, for all that it's worth, which is so much, it's a story of like not immense privilege, which is like very cinematic, like a royal story, for example. But it's a story of like normal privilege. Like it's like a first world problems movie. And that's an extremely reductive way to look at most movies.
Enough privilege to like be wandering through your life without much.
It's just enough that if it had ended without exploring more deeply something, which it very much does, it would have had maybe like a star or half star knocked off it for me. But the place that it goes to in the third act is what gives. I gave it 5 stars. Like that's what makes it into something different, because it becomes the type of movie that I always talk about and I always look for, where like scene to scene, I don't know what I'm about to feel.
Yep.
And that's what movies are supposed to be,
Yeah.
It also, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, trying not to give away literally anything on my top 10, but like between Licorice Pizza and especially this movie, it captures a sensation that's, I feel like at least the three of us can relate to, and probably most people our age or about our age going into their early 30s can kind of relate to, where you're just kind of feel like you're at this crossroads of your life where you know that you need to have like your life planned out, but you don't really know what the next steps are to achieve whatever your dream is. And you don't even know what your dream is. Like, it's kind of like you're trying to shuffle around all these ideas. It's one of the things what resonated the most about this movie with me is kind of feeling like you're pulled in all of these different directions because you have all of these different things that you're interested in, but maybe not necessarily that is your like life's passion.
Yeah.
And trying to kind of figure out what to do with your life. And then how that also ties into the womanhood of this all and kind of the societal urge of like, well, you know, that biological clock is hitting. Now you're in your 30s, like that, adding that element to this, along to like this whole like love story, the anxiety behind that of, you're happy with this person, but is this quote unquote the one? Like, there's so much packed into this movie without it ever becoming too much, without it ever becoming overwritten. There's not a single thing about this movie that I would say is overwritten or even suffers from like, I mean, I love him. He's one of my favorite writers, but even like a Noah Baumbach thing where some of the Noah Baumbach work that doesn't work as well is because it's like people don't act like this. Like, this is great because they're movie characters, but this isn't genuine to human beings.
But this also doesn't forget to be a movie. Like that's the thing. It's it has plenty of sequences that are just like great movie.
There's
moments.
one scene in particular that's just like,
Yeah.
tears shedding,
And it
just
also-
coming down, beautiful of cinema.
It also sort of depends on the scene because there are scenes that are like way more sparse with dialogue because they should be because it's scenes that are emotion based, and then there are scenes that are way more written than like real life is, but they don't feel like it. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like it, even when it is like not just like full naturalism, it still doesn't feel like you're watching a play, because it's written into these characters, first of all, for them to be like that, because most of it comes with her older boyfriend, whatever his name is, because
Axel.
yeah, which as is like fully explored, he's someone that likes to vocalize everything he's feeling instead of just feeling it. There are also probably like 50 different little bon mot like individual lines in this movie that are just like gorgeous.
Perfect.
Like really, really like special writing that you would find in like a book.
His monologue at the end is just
Anders
so
Danielson,
devastating.
I just openly sobbing. Let me tell you, especially on a rewatch, I kind of, more than anything, because of course, like, really relating a lot to Julie, to Renata Rensiev's character, as I mean, she is kind of our main hero throughout this whole thing. But I relate a lot to like a lot of the different characters in this movie that just like,
because they're all like
they all
lived-in
feel
humans.
they all feel so genuine. They all feel like they have their own lives, which is explored through this kind of chapter format that we see both like the good human side and kind of the worst of people come out in these just little like snippets of people's lives.
There's so many great moments. I can't wait to rewatch it because there are like the whole through line with the comic book, the Bobcat comic book. Like there's
The
so
starfish.
many there's so many great moments there. The one guy's ex-girlfriend that's like a diehard environmentalist.
it's so good.
That's another great little directing thing. We go through this like quick catch up / montage of their entire dating life, which really focuses on her personal evolution and discovering like her native heritage and like getting in deep into climate change and like, you know, feeling the pain of the earth.
Yeah, and not even like in an inherently like negative or judgmental way, but just how that personal journey can push away other people in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
that's fascinating. That's just such an
there's
interesting dynamic to explore.
because
it doesn't paint that character as a negative person.
No.
It just
At all.
shows you how those two people drifted apart.
There's a little line where it's like it's just the beginning of a sentence. I don't even know how it ends, but it's starting after explaining like what she's going through and how she's changing his life. It's like with carrying the weight of the Western man on his shoulders.
Good subtitle work in this movie. It must not be easy to translate
No, man.
from Norwegian.
Norwegian
to
is
get-
a weird language.
Well, Joachim Trier is bilingual. He does speak English, so I'm
Okay.
sure that I think that he probably was responsible for a lot
dual
of the
dual scripting.
Yeah,
double right. Could you imagine writing?
he's been doing a ton of interviews and he speaks very, very fluent English. So
yeah, that makes sense because this is very well translated. Like there are a lot of laughs in the theater where everyone is just reading a sentence at the same time and laughing, and that's pretty hard to do.
yeah, well, it's the same thing that we talked about whenever we talked about The Farewell a couple years ago, where it's like just really good job at not only the subtitling itself, but knowing the timing
Yeah.
of it.
Man, that's what really kills me about television subtitling is that the lines come up so far
The
before
timing
they're
is so
said,
bad.
and
Yeah,
so
it's
any hope that there will be a joke is just ruined.
Dude, when
it's so ruined.
I'm watching Sopranos and like half the time I'm just like I have to actively not look at the
man, yeah,
subtitles.
I can't watch anything funny with subtitles.
Yeah.
Timing is like 80% of jokes.
Yeah.
Like, it destroys it. And it doesn't do that here. So that's a good call out, actually.
So I actually think we should get into a spoiler section here because I have some very specific thoughts about the ending of this movie. So
Yeah.
any other kind of like overall thoughts before we dive into spoilers about the worst person in the world?
Just even before we get to the end, it just has some of my favorite scenes I've seen in a long time. My favorite scene before the end is easily when she meets Elvind.
Dude, incredible.
Oh
It
my
is-
god, it's such a complex scene.
It's
too.
fucking
It's so
it is
hard.
electric, and it captures the correct energy
Yeah.
because that's the energy that would have to get them both in this headspace of still thinking about each other like all that time later.
Non-sexual intimacy.
Yeah, they watch each other piss.
I've never seen that in a movie before.
It's so
I've never seen anything like that.
Because that scene always just ends with them fucking in a movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
duh, that's where it ends in real life.
But also just like doing the things that you do with somebody that you've been with for
just being
years.
like, oh, we're not cheating. We're just like watching each other pee.
yeah, just showing like the like emotional cheating, but just being like,
Yeah.
we didn't do it. We aren't aroused by this. Like
it has the electricity of like a really special like first date or when meeting someone that like becomes important in your life, which is again, I keep saying this because it's true. This movie has a lot of elements that are way harder to execute in film than it may look.
Yeah.
Because it feels straightforward because you're not watching anything otherworldly, but the depth of emotion that they get out of pretty simple scenes is harder than $1 million set piece.
Yeah. One last quick thing we've talked about before, but Renata Renzi, who plays Julie, one of my favorite performances of the last several years. I mean, it's my favorite performance of the year, like by a mile. I think that she got fucking robbed, that she should have been nominated, especially as you look at the other nominees for Best Lead Actress. And since this movie did get some love, like, fucking give Renata a goddamn nomination. Like, she's so stupid good at playing so many different characters within this one performance. It's such a complicated character, especially as I've rewatched it. I can't wait for this movie to come. You mentioned it's going to be on Hulu. I'd be willing to bet that this is going to come out on Criterion within the next 12 months.
I can see it.
Again,
I can't wait to watch this over and over again. This is going to be like Frances Ha for me, because I mean, people compared this a lot to Frances Ha. And similarly, I watch Frances Ha like every year to 18 months or so and get something different out of it. And I'm going to do the same thing with this movie.
Yeah. I also, for me, I like this a lot more than Frances Ha. Frances Ha didn't hit nearly as much for me because I really truly don't like Frances Ha, like the character. Like, I don't find much redeemable at all in her. And this character has so much inside of her. And part of it's because this movie was made for more than like $2 and it's not like 90 minutes, like there's a reason.
There's a scale to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was going to say though, to that point, like, this is not unique to this year, but the 2021 slate has just like this recurring theme of just like deeply like shitty people that you just can't help but root for.
Yeah.
You've got obviously this one. You've got Alana Haim in Licorice Pizza. You've got Simon Rex in Red Rocket. Even like Bradley Cooper in Nightmare Alley. Like,
it's almost like I have a lot going on in my life right now that I need to.
There's just like this little mini Mount Rushmore of just like movies that have very kind of perfectly been able to paint these characters that are very terrible people as really great characters, like movie characters. And that's because of the writing, the directing, and the performances. Like, there's just like this perfect summation of like all these pieces that have come together so perfectly. And in this movie, I think it's special because like it's a tough thing to show somebody that, going back to like your privilege point, like doesn't really have any problems going on in her life, really, but she is like creating problems for herself.
Yeah.
Like she does not have to be facing some of the challenges she's facing, but she can't help but continue to put herself in a situation where she's like fucking up things in her life.
And she's also, compared to a lot of those characters, she's way less of a bad person because she doesn't have evil in her heart. She just wants what she wants, and that changes. And
But she is hurting the people around her.
She definitely is. But she's also getting hurt by them. The only person that she really scorns unneedingly is one, I'll just say one of the guys. But that's the only scene where it just feels like purely out of nowhere. Like, hey, stop being mean to this nice man. Other than that, like this is just like a really strong woman who doesn't know what she wants, but she knows when she doesn't want what she has, and that. Like, I can relate to that entirely. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But there's this tug of war though, because it's like, shouldn't she want what she has? Like, what she has is amazing, And it's like there's something in her telling her that she shouldn't want it, even though she should want it.
Because there's no such thing as should want.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It's that whole thing.
Want is involuntary.
Exactly. It's that whole thing of just like, yes, I want this, but like, am I even allowed to feel like this sort of happiness if it's at the expense of someone else?
Yeah,
like that's a whole other.
Exactly.
Issue
I've had relationships that I should have wanted and didn't, and that that is a very recognizable feeling where it's like I understand what the expectation of feeling is right now, but I'm not like creating the feeling. It's just there and I'm observing it, and it's her having the courage to act upon that when most people probably wouldn't. And it goes through like speaking toward the feminism aspect of it. There's a reason we get a whole interstitial about all the women in her family tree, just living in the service of other men.
Moment.
Yeah.
That does a lot of work to be like, oh yeah, everything she's doing is fucking small potatoes compared to what these women had to go through just to like live.
Yeah.
They had to like shit
Pumping
out
9
Yeah, they had to
children.
shit out all these kids. They probably didn't want to, like, and that was just what they had to do.
Yeah.
And so
it's
she is like, it's almost like a triumph that she's being a bit of an asshole,
Right.
because of that.
Yeah, it's like you have the privilege of being an asshole.
Yeah,
where your
she's allowed to
ancestors
be a
did not.
dick.
One last thing before we get to spoilers. You boys get a free retcon right now to throw this into your list, into your top 10, if you so wish.
I told
Are
you
you
last
doing
week.
it? And where are you putting it at? And Drew, just keep in mind, before you put it on your list, that does mean that you are going to have to kick out Old.
No.
Old is at number 10 right now. So unless you're going to reshuffle and put that up, but
I told you I put this at my number 4. I have it at number 4 right now. I have Dune, Inside, Green Knight, Worst Person.
What was my number 1 even?
Licorice Pizza. I think we shared. Yeah, I know mine was Licorice Pizza.
No,
thought that we shared
I
it.
put this very slightly above Licorice Pizza because the lasting impact is a lot bigger for me.
Nice.
For me
Cool.
personally.
So we still match.
Hell
I
yeah.
love that for us.
Are we redundant? Like if
I
the screenwriter was getting notes on this podcast, would the person be
I
like,
will
hey,
just
I feel like
say-
you just combine Hunter
More,
and Drew.
more worm.
You did say you did have an ex-girlfriend who once said when we were in the same room as each other, you two are redundant.
That's true. Actually, I've had multiple girlfriends who have said that about
Yeah,
us.
so
Like, not joking.
maybe Ernest, maybe you should take some notes from the audience and just cut one of
It's
us.
fine. You guys are fine. You guys are doing great. Let's get into spoilers for The Worst Person in the World. So come back and listen to this and watch this when you have actually seen the movie, or just keep watching if you don't care. So I want to talk about how man gets fucking cancer in the last round of this movie. Which chapter?
I have
Does
the
it-
chapters pulled up. It's in chapter 11. It's in the penultimate
Okay, so this
chapter.
is like the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and very cleverly, you find out with Julie. It's not something that she's known about. That like
you find out in the bookstore.
Well, because
just-
she finds about it in a very like unceremonious way when she's not really ready to process that, and so do we.
Yeah.
Like because it's
Oh,
just during a bookstore scene.
So no. So actually, sorry, I got this. Yeah, so it was in chapter 10 because she finds out about the bookstore, but she doesn't immediately go to the hospital.
She
like,
goes and
home.
she's an asshole to her
Yeah,
man.
she's
Which
just like
that's-
shitty.
That's the
So-
only scene in the whole movie where I was like, "Hey, this is just a dopey idiot."
Yeah,
Like,
this guy
Just
just
a
has no
guy.
idea
Yeah,
about
just
anything.
a dumb guy.
Yeah, and he's even nice when she's mean. But then, I mean, he gets his in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
But
He's got a baby.
dude, Anders Danielson Lee, which he is like a longtime collaborator with Joachim Trier. He's worked on, I think, 3 or 4 of Joachim Trier's other films.
He's fantastic.
Dude, I loved him in the first time that I saw this movie, but the second time that I saw this, I really related to his character, and not in like the way, because there is one scene that is not great for him where he happens to be on a podcast. Things don't really go so great
he's
for
like
a guy
tripling
Axel.
down on Bobcat.
Yeah, not a
comments.
great look for Axel. But the whole idea of being
That's gonna be you like
obsessive-
being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and he's like, "So you said that Schindler's List was the most rewatchable movie of all time."
Yeah, and Tucker Carlson would be like, "So tell me how smart you are. Like that.
Yeah.
Tell me how right that is."
Yeah, no, that's the wrong example, because he would definitely encourage that kind of bad behavior. No, so the whole idea of just kind of being like obsessed with with your own creation, but especially with like media and with art and stuff like that. When earlier on in the film, kind of jumping back a little bit, whenever he goes on this whole rant about the starfish, as he calls it, talking about Bobcat's butthole, and Julie's eyes like glaze over. I've seen Gaia's eyes do that before whenever I'm talking about a movie that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I just see her be like, I'm dead inside.
So there's one, at least one, maybe two specific dinner party scenes that are so fucking perfect because the way they're written and directed and acted, you can tell how excruciating it must be to be sitting here listening to this guy talk.
Yeah.
And he's clearly talking about something that he's very passionate about.
But it's just something
we're watching it through her eyes.
Yeah, you do not fucking care.
And it's just like this guy's going on and on about like philosophy. What is he talking about? It's like Sigmund Freud or something.
Yeah, he's obsessed with Freudian psychology. And it is the thing, like, it's perfectly written because I was on the exact same page as her, where I was like, this guy is good at heart and he's brilliant and he's creative. He is annoying, man.
Yeah, he's just annoying.
Like,
dude.
sometimes he needs to shut the fuck up.
Well, but just to go to the end, like, the thing is that, you know, you watch so many of these scenes that paint this guy as like kind of this annoying guy, like grating presence.
Basically, he thinks that he knows everything.
And then you get to the end of the movie and you feel like she kind of fucked up a little bit by not being with him. You know, like she let the one person that treated her really well get away. And
I don't know. I didn't feel that is the thing, because the next guy treated her really well.
Yeah, but their relationship was not as deep.
I know.
Yeah, it was more surface level, and I mean, they kind of have that little bit of a they have that moment where they kind of say to each other as he's lying there on the bed, like, we could talk to each other like no one else ever could. Like we did, whether or not we were like meant to be together forever, we had a connection that was like undefinable compared to any other relationship.
It's interesting because like when she gets with Guy, with Dude, with Elvin, you feel like she is getting something very substantial. She's certain need is being met.
You the rom-com moment. You get the time stops moment.
Right.
Like
right. That's an amazing scene.
Well,
that is the movie moment
just,
right there.
Basic
cinema.
But you feel like there is a piece of her romantic needs that are not being met with Axel that are now being met with Elvin.
Yeah, exactly. It's the surface level versus the depth.
Right.
Like Axel is just all depth. He will not stop being philosophical. She doesn't want him to keep being like there's one of the best lines in the whole thing is like, sometimes I wish you would just feel something without saying it. Like you don't have to vocalize every feeling. You can just feel.
Yeah.
Their breakup is an incredible scene.
It's one of the most well-realized breakups I've ever seen.
It scratches the level of the Before Midnight fight.
It really, where it's just like
it just keeps going.
A breakup, if you've ever been through a breakup, it's not all fighting and screaming at each other.
Or not even a breakup, just a fight, like a really bad fight.
It's reminiscing, like live in the moment. It's like hating each other and then like trying to make things work. It's everything all at once. It's just
really well done.
All of the emotions.
Yeah. And how it ends with her saying that like maybe we'll get back together. I keep thinking about
in that moment she meant it.
Exactly.
It's so good.
Exactly. Because like
right there.
because like obviously they don't get back together because he dies, but that feeling of like walking away from this relationship and still feeling like there's something there that you care about that you're leaving. I guess that's what you meant by like the courage, like her courage to do that, to still leave while knowing that like there's something substantial she's leaving behind.
Because she also knows that something's very wrong, you know?
Right. But then when he dies and when he's dying, there is this like deeply heartbreaking feeling of like, I mean, obviously his cancer doesn't have anything to do with any of her actions, but the feeling that the movie is conveying is like she left him and now she can never get him back. And the moment she decided to leave him was the moment that the path was set on his life ending. And obviously, like, that's not a direct correlation, but like that's like part of the feeling I got from the movie is like you get this breakup, you get her feeling like there's something still there, and then she can never get it back. Ever. It's fully gone forever.
Well, more than just even their relationship, I think that seeing someone who she was close with and she was with for years kind of puts this frivolity that she has for life itself and kind of this jumping from career path to career path. It puts that all in perspective because it says like, oh, I'm not eternal. Like someone who I like, he was a little bit older than me, but this person I was close with, like, he's dying now and he's going to die very soon. And he can't change what his course in life is. And eventually I'm not going to be able to change mine either. And I need to kind of take some not even just accountability for my own actions, but kind of some ownership of self to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Where the whole film had kind of been her coasting isn't quite the right word, but I guess moving throughout life.
Indecisive.
Yes.
Well, also her being with these guys was a part of that.
Yeah.
Like that relationship had to end because that was a part of her indecision. It was like the end of the movie represents that she has to, in order to like find an eventual partner, potentially, she has to figure out being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, exactly.
She can't, you can't just jump from person to person.
And I think that's where the movie ends. It's like this idea of like her finally being in this space where like she is just going to take the time to figure that out.
Because I don't think like when she's talking to Axel for like the last few times, I don't think that she necessarily regrets breaking up with him. I think if she does, like those feelings are just because she feels really, really, really bad for him because she, obviously you would, like, the man's dying and like,
well, regret is pointless at that point.
It's not even regret. It's more of just the thinking of what could have been. It's
I know,
where your brain
but
wonders that you can't stop that idea. And the film doesn't stop that either.
The thing is, during most of those scenes, there's a reason that it's almost 100% Axel talking because she is feeling empathy for him. She isn't necessarily agreeing with everything he's saying. I don't think that
he notably tries to grab her boob at one point, and he just like
because
just moves it off.
Yeah, and also like
no.
I would imagine that she is capable of feeling that depth of connection with more people than Axel is. Axel is a tough egg to crack. Like I believe that she was a shooting star in his life because he's not like that. He doesn't open up to people. She does. So like she's just listening to him saying all this stuff while he's crying, and like she's crying too because it's deeply powerful. I don't think she necessarily agrees, even though she can obviously acknowledge that what they had was very, very special. So that's why I think it's a perfectly balanced film. I guess is because I didn't end up wishing that she had done anything differently, even though I know she made mistakes.
Well,
that's a crazy balance to hit.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't make any sense that works so well.
I mean, just jumping off that point, going back to, I think it's chapter 2, which is just called cheating. The fact that it's called cheating, it sets you up at a certain point where you are ready to just be like, this is a despicable move that you can do. The film is called The Worst Person in the World, and chapter 2 is called Cheating. And you are just kind of predisposed to be like, oh, I hate this. This feels icky. This feels wrong. And then you just kind of can't help but be kind of swept away by her charisma and like by this magical moment that she is feeling. Because in her mind, it's not doing anything kind of malicious. She doesn't see anything malicious with what she's doing because for the most part, humans aren't just like openly doing malicious things for the sake of being evil.
Exactly.
That's not what humans are.
She's drunk and she's feeling unvalued and she's seeking
that's
connection.
That's one of the things that makes this script so well written is that none of the characters ever fall into any type of like true archetype. Like they just feel like real people. Even like the characters that you barely get to know they all feel like real people. Like the at
others,
the beginning,
all the friends of Axel.
It's really well
that
done.
party was so good.
That's such a great dude. That's like an adult party kind of thing. Everybody's having fun, having a good time until like suddenly something happens and it's just like party's over now.
It reminded me of
screaming.
It reminded me a lot of The Entire History of You, Black Mirror. That adult party where like there's this tension of like not everyone wants to get on the wavelength of like youth. You know. It's super.
Sometimes
super well
we
done.
just want to play back our tapes in our head.
You know that Axel was doing that on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Can I
whacking it.
Speaking of
He wasn't fucking nobody else after that.
speaking of just kind of entire history of you media kind of things, can I just read a little bit from Axel's monologue? Because this is the part where in the theater, like, I be crying. I be thinking about, like, as I'm going to suffocate myself in my walls of Blu-ray and media.
Yeah.
I grew up in a time when culture was passed along through objects. They were interesting because we could live among them. We could pick them up, hold them in our hands, compare them. That's all I have. I spent my life doing that, collecting all that stuff, comics, books, and I just continued. Even when it stopped giving me the powerful emotions I felt in my early 20s, I continued anyway. And now that's all that I have left. Knowledge and memories of stupid, futile things nobody cares about. That's what it's feeling like going into year 5 of this podcast, boys. I'll tell you.
Welcome back to We Got a Mic.
I mean,
As I just keep
that's a very specific thing to like the. I guess our parents' generation has this too, but like very much the millennial sort of late Gen X type of generation, where it's like we now are fully in a digital world, but we still have these relics of a pre-digital world that we're trying to hang on to. Because people younger than us, they are not really going to relate to that kind of
they
sentiment.
They were raised fully in it. We were raised partially in it.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's like it would be very easy to fuck up in this movie. It's not just that discussion. There are a lot of discussions about like generational gaps and the role that technology plays in shaping like what a generation becomes. And that should be annoying. The rom-com equivalent of that in like an entire movie is the movie She's Just Not That Into You, which sucks. It's the cringiest. Like in retrospect, every single reference they've made is aged so poorly.
I like that movie as a kid, but to be honest, I have not seen that movie.
It's so bad. Like put the trailer alone, you got to watch it. It's Drew Barrymore being like, I mean, I IM'd him. He MySpaces me. We're on G-Chat.
We're meant to be.
And that's what this movie, like, you know, in less deft hands could have become. But these conversations are sort of eternal because this will be a pressing topic for every generation moving forward. What stage technology was in when throughout your entire life. It matters so much.
And how do you what is the main form of communication as you're building out the relationship too? Like that's a big part of it. And this movie touches on that a little bit, not too much. I think one of the things I like about this movie is that it doesn't go that route. It could get into like texting and like whatever.
It would have
Instagram.
It would have been if she had
worse.
exchanged numbers with the guy at the party. But she doesn't. And it's more magical because of that.
And it makes the movie feel more timeless. Like I think this is one of those movies that you'll look back on it like 15 years from now and it's still going to have the same level of resonance because it doesn't like date itself. I mean, obviously it like mentions Facebook a couple times, but like it doesn't lean into those parts of modern dating and more about like just the kind of timeless aspects of dating with these generational things in them, like the monologue too. I think that is, something that is very unique to like our generation and some surrounding generations. There's 3 things I need to shout out before we start to wrap up. First of all, the mushroom trip. Incredible scene.
So
Short
I
and
didn't.
sweet.
I really didn't like this the first time that I saw this movie.
Really?
To be honest, yeah, I just thought that it was just like out of left field to the point where like it didn't really add anything to the movie for me.
Well, she needed a crisis. She needed
it was
some.
like it was catharsis for the father plot line, for like a lot of the kind of the outstanding plot lines that
Yeah,
there
but
were.
an ego death that can come from a psychedelic trip is like can fit into a story like this about somebody who's like trying to find their way. You know, she's like aimless and doesn't even know what kind of, you know, place her life has or anything like that. And then she has this mushroom trip and like it kind of like jolts her a little bit to feel like, okay, now I can have some sort of agency in my life.
It puts you more into her brain also because, you know, like,
and it's just a cool scene.
yeah, she sees herself as like, an, you know, an
I mean,
old
it's really-
giant
it's a
lady.
really,
That's
really-
what she was thinking while being with the Axel.
Right.
You know, she was thinking, this is my end if I stay with him.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I'm in less control of what I become.
It kind of visualizes those fears.
Yeah.
It's a really well done scene. That's my least favorite chapter. Still, to be honest, I think it's because the rest of the film is so grounded.
I think it's well shot.
I think it's
really,
because-
really well done. But
I think
just,
you don't like
it's-
it because you think periods are gross.
No, I don't like.
You're a piece of shit.
I think that scene like objectifies women. That shows the male gaze of coming across in the directorial.
Men love it when a girl smears period blood like it's eye paint.
No, it's just I still like I love this entire movie. I think this movie is perfect. I wouldn't change.
No,
a single goddamn
it's
thing about it.
it is
but
like the most.
it's jarring.
even in a movie with a lot of stylized shit, like the time freezing sequence, like that still does stick out. So I could see like it sticking out too much for someone.
I like
I still
that
loved
they
it so
decided to put in. It doesn't. I mean,
well, me too. It didn't like ring any bells for me at all. Like I was like,
that's what I mean when I said that this movie doesn't forget to be a movie. Like
Yeah.
the fact that it puts something in here just to be like, yeah, let's show some. It's just like the animated sequence where it like animates the Bobcat comic, like shit like that. Like it's like let's just fucking do it. Like let's take the time to do cool shit because it's a movie. Like let's be a movie. Let's be this visually engaging piece.
It's a really really special movie. I think like I said, like in terms of all around execution.
Yeah.
like it hits a lot.
Side question: would you guys go opening night to go see Bobcat Rex Christmas?
yes,
Yeah.
100%.
I'd do it.
But like, would you like boo the screening afterwards?
No.
Because be like, where's the starfish?
I would howl. I'd be like, oh, 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 oh.
It's definitely the type of thing that like you would have told me about the comics when we were like 18 or 19 and I would have been like, oh yeah, I gotta read those, and then I like never did. But like you know, you really like them and you're just like fucking fuming about this movie and I'm like, oh yeah, bummer.
This is you with Why the Last Man like last year.
bummed out.
I'm talking to Ernie if I didn't
Just-
say it. For the
So
listeners.
I also wanted to shout out. I just think that it's really sad that she doesn't see him when he's actually gonna die.
Oh, I
the
love.
hospital.
That's so good though.
That's
just like
so
it's,
sad.
he's with his family.
It also makes sense
Yeah.
that they wouldn't.
Right. It's like the ex-girlfriend's gonna show up here.
Yeah,
You know,
they
but
don't. I'm sure they don't necessarily love her.
Also, that would just be like a very rom-com thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that would be a little bit too much movie for her to show
Yeah,
up.
it would be the most movie thing if he like died while sitting at the bench across from
Yeah.
her. You know, like
But I just think it's sad, you know. I just wanted to like mention that it's like for a movie that ends as sad as it does, that's one of the saddest moments is like she chooses to not see him.
and her ending, like I like that she ends single, but like after it was a pointed effort to make this dopey guy seem like genuinely he is so nice. Like he just isn't what she wants,
right?
You know, but he's, even when she's like being so mean to him, he's like, hey, I don't know what to say. That was, you know, that really hurt.
That was so good. And then lastly, I love every outfit that she wears. Every single
the outfits
outfit.
are so good.
I was like,
Hey,
this is incredible.
I think the secret MVP of this movie is just Oslo. After seeing this movie, I was like, I looked up like,
It's nice.
what is the cost of a house in Oslo going for these days? Because could I just drop everything, move to Oslo? It's one of the happiest places on earth. Very, very low depression rate, very low suicide rate, especially for a metropolis region, which is surprising.
Healthcare, brother.
It's surprising too, because also like you'd think in like Norway, like seasonal depression would be pretty bad, but no.
When I was in
Happy
Europe,
place.
I really wanted to go up to Norway and the prices were very high compared to Southern Europe. So I did not go.
Well, there's some economies in Southern Europe that aren't doing so great. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but yeah. Love the prologue and the epilogue are just like so fucking good. The prologue is so
Puppy.
Momo.
Puppy.
More puppy trouble.
I love the prologue so much of just setting up like exactly who this Julie character is. You learn so much about her, just like perfect use of voiceover.
Yeah.
And then the epilogue just really like leaves Julie in a place of character growth. We get the view of our boy Ivan, just daddy now.
Full dad mode.
Daddy as fuck. And I think one of my favorite cut to credits closing songs in a while. Waters of March by Art Garfunkel.
Another doggy.
Oh, we got more puppies
Oh,
in the
there's
house.
2 doggos in here. Hello, gang.
That means we have to end the podcast before they
Big doggy.
knock everything over again.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Oh, I love this dog.
That's all. That's The Worst Person in the World, Jackass, Severance, and The Good Place. Thank you so much for watching, tuning in, listening. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe as we keep going with our Robin Williams series with Aladdin. If you haven't listened to that one already, check it out. And Toys coming up next. And then after that, we got 2 big ones. We got Mrs. Doubtfire and Jumanji.
Oof.
So we're getting into the big 90s
This is the run.
The meat.
of Robin.
Robin's meat.
Let us know what you thought
Terry.
of The Worst Person in the World and Jackass if you've seen it. And be sure to email us and follow us and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And donate. Thank you, all you beautiful donors, for donating. We love you. Stick around. Thanks for listening and watching. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.